So the Law Society was founded in 1933. For 89 years, the Society strives to provide its members with opportunities to socialise, to engage in discourse, and to experience new phenomena. The Praeses Elit Award is an integral part of that endeavour. It is given to those who have left an indelible impact in their chosen field and who have advanced discourse and societal thought in the process. The award was founded by Mary Robinson, former Auditor of the Law Society, and of course, the first female President of Ireland. Rarely bestowed, the recipients of this honour include Sir Bob Geldof, Baroness Hale, Samantha Power, and Gloria Arnold. This year in particular, the Law Society wishes to place an emphasis on empowering students not only in their careers and academic efforts, but also in their everyday lives. We would like to pay a very kind thank you to our sponsors, Arthur Cox. Without them, this event would not be possible. Trainee applications are open for Arthur Cox at the moment until the 28th of October. Thank you to everyone as well who came out yesterday to our talk with Arthur Cox. We really appreciate it. So it is for this reason that Dr. Marie Cassidy has been nominated for the Praeses Elit Award. Dr. Cassidy joined the Royal College of Pathologists in 1985, making her the first female full-time forensic pathologist in the United Kingdom. In 1998, she moved to Ireland to take up the position of Deputy State Pathologist. She was then appointed to the position of State Pathologist in January 2004, becoming the first ever female State Pathologist in Ireland. She served in this role until 2018, working on every major investigation in Ireland as the lead expert in forensic pathology. In addition, Dr. Cassidy is a Professor of Forensic Medicine at the Royal College of Surgeons in Ireland and previously worked as a consultant for the United Nations, helping to identify the remains of victims of war crimes in Bosnia. For all these reasons and more, we thank Dr. Cassidy and are honoured to present her with the Praeses Elit Award.
We'll head up now. Great, so you head over there. So, thank you so much, everybody. As Owen, who pulled this whole event together, so well done to Owen. But he kind of introduced me. My name is Ruth Brady, and I'm the Auditor of the Law Society, and I'm absolutely honoured to be presenting Dr. Marie Cassidy with the Praeses Elit Award. So there you go, Dr. Cassidy.
Thank you very much.
No problem. We might
delighted.
get a quick photo, and then we'll just. Amazing. So you have an opportunity to say a few words if you'd like, and then we'll go on.
Well, I'd like to thank you all for awarding this. Everybody loves a little award. You don't get many in my line of business. There's no perks when you're dealing with people who are dead. So you take whatever you can get. So that'll be on my wall. A long time ago, and it's probably about 50 years ago now, I was where you are. Well, not literally in Trinity, I was in Glasgow University, thinking about what I was going to do with my life. And at that time, I hadn't a clue. And I always tell, whenever I'm doing these talks to schools in particular, I always say it's really quite difficult when you're a teenager trying to work out where you're going to go in life. There are people who are set on doing something, and great, and that's wonderful. But I was one of these people who didn't know what to do, and I ended up going into medicine. It wasn't as difficult to get into medicine those days as it is now. I'll say that. I wasn't an A++++ student. I was okay. When I even embarked on a medical career, again, I had no idea where it was going to go. And in medicine, a bit like law, which I've been finding out, only because my son, we plugged for Arthur Cox. My son went to Arthur Cox. He had one of the internships, and then he ended up in there. He's now in London earning billions, so it's a good place to start. But law's a bit like medicine, because you can, people think about lawyers as sitting in a little office, writing wills and going to court with Neds and with various people. But it's not. There's so many different areas you can go into, and medicine's a bit like that. And I was just so lucky that I found my niche, because I don't know how many of you in this room are thinking, this was a great idea to go and do law. I was about 2 years into medicine, and I thought, what on earth possessed me to decide on medicine? Because I'm a fish out of water. You know, I come from a working class background. You know, there's no doctors in my family. I just thought that doctors went about with white coats, a stethoscope, and patted people on the head, and they all got better. But you soon find out that's not what happens, and the reality is very, very different. And that's why I kept I tried everything. And I even had consultants say to me, no, Mary, I don't think this one's for you. Obstetrics and gynecology, pregnant women and babies? Oh, no. Pediatrics, little kids? No. Yeah, I was even told, I don't think you should come back. Because every time you walk into a ward, the kids all start screaming. And I thought, oh, good. And I tried every branch that I could possibly think of till I found pathology. And that's when I thought, I've found what I want to do. And I was more than happy working in the laboratory, looking down the microscope, making diagnoses, helping the surgeons from a distance to decide what was wrong with somebody and the best course, how to deal with it. And then I hit upon forensic pathology. And again, as I've often said, it was a bit like Alice in Wonderland. I opened this door into this mortuary, which was in a crumbly old building, and the building in Glasgow was next to the High Court. So we were very close to, if we had a murder, we could just go in next door and we were there, trials, on we go. And it was an old ancient, and it looked like the old public toilets. You're too young to know that. These old brick buildings that used to be dotted about towns. But when I opened that door and went in, okay, the smell wasn't great and the place wasn't great, but I suddenly thought, this is where I'm meant to be. Now, by that time, I was 30. So if any of you are sitting there just now thinking, oh, I don't know what I'm going to do, it sometimes takes a while to find where it is you should go. I always feel thankful that people recognise that, I was the first female. But I didn't set out to do that. That just happened. But I use that to try and encourage girls, women into the sciences, into engineering. Sorry about law, but hey, you've got people fighting for you all the time. But I tried to sort of, because women in particular, sort of shy away from engineering, all of these things. So you have to try and encourage them into doing these things, because my mantra is if you really want to do it, you'll find a way to get in there, and you'll find a way to do it. And it's not always easy. And people always say, well, how did you get on in a man's world? Well, I didn't know there was a problem with men, but there is, apparently. Some of my best friends are men, so it can't be all bad. I even married one. But it's a middle-class phenomenon. When you're working class, you're not worried about somebody got promoted above me because he's a man. You're busy thinking, Jesus, can I get through the week, get some money to put food on the table? So it's only when you become a professional, you suddenly start to look at what's happening to you. You assume that you're entitled to be promoted. You assume, and I had never, so I'm always grateful when people promoted me or saw my worth. And I always thought, that's great, but don't be promoting me because I'm a woman. Not that they ever did. It's just because I was bloody good at my job. And that's what I always say, just be good, do the best you can, and that's all you ever can do. So I thank you very much for recognising that I've done something in this country. I did skedaddle out of it, but that's probably only temporary, because my children skedaddled and thought they'd get away from their mother by going to London and earning big bucks. You don't get away from your mother that easily. So mother turned up on the doorstep. Hello, I'm here. But I'm sure sometime they'll kick me back over here. But so thank you very much, and thank you for recognising some of the work that I have done. If any of you are thinking about crime and all the rest of it, it's fantastic. It's a brilliant area. What I will say to you, though, is you're talking about a bit about evidence. And I find that a lot of lawyers and barristers are a bit shy of confronting scientists and doctors. Well, they shouldn't be, because when a doctor or a scientist is in the court, they're there as an expert. They're there to be unbiased. They're there to help you. It doesn't matter whether you're prosecution or your defence. And it took a long time in this country for them to recognise that I was not for the prosecution. And they used to get most annoyed at me when I would say, well, I agree with them. I think whatever it is they're saying, it sounds a lot better than what you're saying. And it took a long while for them to understand that, but I'm there to use, and you should use your experts wisely. Speak to them. I went to the DPP's office and said, there's no point in me turning up at court, because I read out this report, and it's taken me a long time to formulate this report, and you just go, thank you, doctor. And I go, you're not going to ask any questions? They go, can't ask you questions. I said, but how do you know I'm right? I said, I hope I am. I'm not desperate, I'm not going to lie, but that's my opinion. And they said, but if we ask you questions, the defence will have to ask you questions. And I thought, by God, it's taking a long time for that penny to drop. I said, I don't like it when I'm standing up in that witness box, but that's the game we're playing. And so bit by bit, they suddenly accepted that I was there to help the court, not to help either side. So if any of you are coming into criminal law, any of you are going into the courts, talk to your experts. It's amazing. Even if you're saying, I'm thinking about asking that question, I go, well, I wouldn't if I were you, because I don't think you'll like the answer I'm going to give. So maybe steer away into something else. But use them and use them wisely. But what I will say is, I hope you all have a wonderful career in law. And thankfully, now all you smart, wonderful people are coming up. I'm not going to be standing in the witness box anymore, thank God. Well, I am occasionally, for cases that are going back yonks. But no new cases. But I may see you in the court, I may not. But if you ever want to ask a question, just ask a question. Not sure you'll get the right answer, but you can ask the question. Anyway, thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Dr. Cassidy. I think I might want to detour to forensic pathology now. But so obviously, we're going to go into the interview part of the speech now, and it's kind of so that all our members can see how you got to where you are. So I guess the best place to start, I always say this, but I'm like, the best place to start is at the beginning. So can you just tell us a little bit about, you grew up in Glasgow, maybe did you have any hobbies or interests, true crime? But yeah, if you tell us a little bit about growing up.
I mean, I had no notion of crime or anything when I was young, because I lived about 20 miles from Glasgow, and if there was any crime going on, it was mostly in Glasgow. Where I came from, what we had were gangs. That was all we knew. And they didn't bother anybody else but other gangs. They were, they stuck to their own, which was fine, because we just let them go on fighting. But it never even crossed my psyche. And even when I went to do medicine, what I did find was that they never talked about people dying either. So you never would tell a medical student that sometimes we don't get it right, or sometimes it doesn't work and people die. So for the 6 years I was at university, they kept us all away from dead people. So it came as a bit of a shock when I decided on pathology, because I thought I'd just be sitting at a microscope looking at an appendix, a bit of a tumour, and then they said, go down and do a post-mortem. Somebody's died? And they said yes. And that was the first time I actually thought about people dying and what happened. And even then, I was only dealing with the deaths that occurred in hospital. So if somebody had come in and they had terminal cancer and died, somebody came in with a heart attack and died, those are the kind of cases you were dealing with. And I kind of read the newspaper like the rest of you, go, oh, there was a stabbing in Glasgow on Friday night. I wonder what happened there. And that was it. Yeah. And then I thought, well, what does happen? Where do they go? They don't come into the hospital, so where do they go? And they went to this little brick building. And when I found out that these bodies went to this little brick building, I thought, oh, I'm intrigued. I want to go inside this little brick building and see what's going on. And as I say, that was when I just went, oh, this is where I'm meant to be. Yeah. I get this. I can understand this. This is where I can help. I'm really not very good with live patients. That's not what I'm put on earth to do. But I can deal with the dead, and I can see where I can help out. So that was it, and so then I just moved into forensic and lived happily ever after.
Absolutely. But when you were making the decision to go off to university, what was it that actually did make you choose medicine in the first place? Was it kind of just like trying to go for the closest thing you were interested in, or did you see yourself as a doctor? Not a bit, because we didn't have careers advice in those days. Okay. The school I went to was all girls, and it was run by nuns. Now, there was only about 2 nuns left by the time I was there, but your careers advice was get married, become a teacher, or become a nun, or you could become a nurse. And I was going through them, I went, I don't really fancy any of them at the moment. And I thought, what do you do? And they actually had a girl came back who'd gone to university
because this was a big thing in our area because, again, most of them were working class, so most people didn't go. All my friends went to work in banks and went to what they call dough school, where they learned how to cook and various things. And I didn't fancy any of that either. But this girl had come back and she was doing maths at university, and I was going, oh, gee, I'm very good at maths, but I don't know where that goes. What do you do with it other than teach? And I don't want to teach. And they send you, the book they send you, and you have to pick what course you want. And I just went through that. I went, if you're good at maths, physics and chemistry, what can you do? And it came down to medicine was the top choice. And I went, okay. And I put medicine in Glasgow University, medicine at Edinburgh University, medicine at St Andrews University. And then I thought, well, better just have a backup plan. So then I put computing. I'd never even seen a computer at that stage in my life. I'd never even seen one. And so I put computing, because that was going to be the up-and-coming thing. Jesus, I'd worth a fortune if I'd done that. But that's a completely other story. And so that was it. And luckily Glasgow took pity on me and said, yes, come on in.
Yeah, and so that's interesting. You're talking about, university that was kind of the goal for you. You were like, I'll go to university. Were you the first person in your family to go to university, or okay?
Yeah, because it just wasn't done. It wasn't,
yeah, it wasn't.
It's just people didn't think about it. You just thought. Most people thought, I'll get through school and then I'll get a decent job. And the decent job really was into the bank. That was supposed to be the pinnacle of your career. And I thought, no, I don't fancy that at all. And as I said, it really was on a whim. I just wanted out of school. I hated school.
Yeah.
And the problem was, you come out of the big school and you go to university, and the medical school is just a bigger school.
Yeah. Because
it's so regimented, it's 9 to 5. It's, because I thought, I'd watched, some of these films where they have these students that sort of lounge about, a bit like yourselves, and sort of maybe go to a lecture, and it's all very nice, and then you have drinks parties. And not in medicine.
No.
Oh, good God, you're there at 9 o'clock in the morning, at 5 o'clock at night, you're coming out going, oh my God, and to do it all again tomorrow, and for 6 years. So that was another big shock to me, because I thought, I was getting out of school, and now I'm just back where I started.
Yeah.
So that, I didn't really expect it to be quite so intense.
Okay, so that's interesting, because I'm looking around a room of Law Society members who, have parties and they're like scheduling speaker events and stuff in their spare time. What was it that did you just go to college 9 to 5 and that was university life?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I was one of those strange creatures that turned up to every lecture. I thought you had to. I just thought you had to. So I can remember at the final year ball, this guy came up to me and went, hi, Mary, and I was going, who are you? They said, oh, it was Alan White. And I went, White? I only knew the A to C's in my year. There was 200 of us, so you were all hived off into little groups. And he had been to about 10 lectures in 6 years. Nobody knew who he was. And he passed, and he's a doctor. A bit worrying. At least I went to the lectures. I maybe didn't remember any of it. But at least I went. I was sure it would all come in here somewhere. It's in there somewhere. But yes. So I just turned up to everything.
Okay, amazing. And so you were saying he's a doctor, and obviously you are a doctor, but yeah, good luck to his patients. But then you're a doctor, but then you made that segue into pathology. So when did that happen, and what was the exact, at what point was it that you actually heard about pathology and were like, I need to position myself in here?
Well, here's a little something that not a lot of people know. I failed my finals. Because I went to university at 16.
Okay.
So when it came to the finals, I thought, there is not a chance in hell that they're going to let me loose on any patients. What on earth am I going to do? And I thought, the only thing you can do is fail the finals.
Okay, logical.
So I thought, that's the best thing. What you don't realise is that medicine is a conveyor belt. You start off on day one, and they are going to get you through to the end, come hell or high water. And I had been, I was one of these students who I wasn't brilliant, but I passed everything. And you learn, when you're at school, you start off and you go in and you go, am I in the top 1 or 2? When you go to university, you start at the bottom, and you go out for your results, and you're going, passed. I'm doing well, yeah. Never mind about those ones at the top. They've got their own problems. At least I'm passing. So nobody expected me to fail. And I thought, if they ask you a question and you try and answer it, they'll chivvy you along till they get the right answer, you know. And I thought, so the only thing you can do is say nothing.
Yeah.
And they thought I'd had a nervous breakdown. I thought, not a chance. And they were saying to me, you perhaps need, you know, sort of counselling or something. And I went, no, I'm going off to holiday. I'm going off to Ibiza for 2 weeks. I'm as happy as Larry. I failed. So it meant that I had an extra 6 months because they said, right, you'll have to resit your surgical exam again. And I thought, well, that's fine because there wasn't a chance in hell I was ever doing surgery anyway. But it was during that time I was thinking, I need to find something. I need to find something that I can do and not kill people. Because that's all I ever thought was, if I kill somebody. And I thought, well, one of the things you could do is go into the laboratories. Yeah. And that's what I did. And that's what and so I came in one day and I went, everybody was sitting at lunch, I went, I found it, pathology. And there was a lot of people who went, oh, Jesus, that's a great idea. So I went, no, there's not that many jobs about. And I've got first dibs. I thought about it. And that's when I went into pathology.
Pathology.
And again, at that time, so that's going way back to 1980 or something like that, a long time ago. I don't think law is quite the same, but medicine's odd because you get these cycles where they have trainees and trainees and trainees, and all of a sudden you get a glut of consultants, and then they decide, well, we better stop training people. Yeah. So then the consultants start falling off the perch, and then they look around and go, oh, we've not trained anybody for it, so we'll have to start training people again. Yeah. And there's always these lag phases going on, and it was going through a lag phase that there was a lot of consultants were retiring, but they hadn't taken on any trainees. And I was busy thinking, well, do you know, there's another thing that I could do where I maybe couldn't do too much harm is A&E. I said, because that's kind of a busy, and you don't see them again. They come in, you treat them, and they go off. Or they go to the ward, or they go to something, so they don't linger. And I thought, I'll give it one more bash. I'll do that for 6 months. And I was getting these begging letters from the pathologist departments, please come, we need somebody. And I thought, oh, well, okay then, I'll come. And so I did. Yeah. And that was lucky for me. And again, I loved it because, and I was always lucky because it's like my husband's a salesman. Sells these big computer systems. He was the right one. Yeah. He went for the bottom line. But he's always saying, you know, there are all these things about, you know, computing things, and I've lost my train of thought there.
The pathology. So So how did you get into pathology? And
yes. I forgot where we were going with that one there.
Well, no, don't worry. It's just we were just basically. I suppose it's interesting that you did segue into pathology. And, you know, I actually did want to ask is there a difference between pathology and then forensic pathology? That was another leap?
Well, that's a big leap, actually. Okay. It's strange, but it is a big leap because when you're doing pathology, you're still very closely allied to the hospitals. Yeah. And your colleagues are other doctors. So you're in the laboratory, but you're still working, you know, you're still going to the meetings, going to the medical meetings and discussing cases, discussing live people and what you're going to do with them and what's wrong with them. So you're still very much a part of that. Okay. Once you decide on forensic, you pull yourself right out of that. Okay. And you're not dealing with any of that material at all. Your colleagues become the Gardaí, lawyers. Yes. So you change, and so everything just changes overnight. And it's a weird mindset. Yeah. And you have to then be able to do that and to move into that arena, because it's just completely alien. And that's why there's a lot of people, once I decided on forensic and I came into forensic, there were a few of my colleagues at the time thought, oh, well, maybe again, if she can do it, it can't be that bad. I can do it. And you have to have the proper mindset for it to be able to stick with it. But a lot of them couldn't grasp this idea of not being a real doctor anymore, you know, the kudos of being the doctor in the hospital. They liked all of that. I couldn't be doing with all of that. And they found it difficult to form relationships with non-doctors, which I found very, very easy. I found it much easier to speak to the guards and to the lawyers. And again, you have to modify your speech as well, because you can't be using all these big highfalutin Latin words,
terms,
which I have now long forgotten. And in fact, I was in court one day and they were trying to get me to say pericardiocentesis, and I'd forgotten all about that term. And I was thinking, well, you just stick a needle into the pericarditis around the heart, and you suck out the fluid, and the person, that should save their lives. Unfortunately, that didn't happen. This guy died. And the guy was going, and you call that? And I was going, you call it a big needle in the side. And he went, is it because he couldn't spell it. He couldn't pronounce it either. And I went, pericard. Oh, I said, I haven't said this. I haven't thought about that for years and years and years. But yeah, you're quite right. So you have to, because you have to make it understandable.
Absolutely.
So your report has to be, if you ever see pathology reports, and particularly in murder cases, the pathology report's in two parts. There's the first part, which is the factual part, and we do tend to use a bit of, sort of Latin terminology and whatever it is, because that's expected in that part of it. Yeah. But then there should be a second part to it, which is the opinion part. And I use that term opinion because it's my opinion based on what the facts are. And when you get to the opinion part, you're trying to explain all of this. And so you have to make it explainable, if you like. And I can remember when I came over here at first, Jack Harbison was a state pathologist, and I was looking at Jack's reports. I was going, Jack, even I can't understand this. And he went, good, because they can't ask me any questions if you don't understand what I've written. And again, I said, that's not the game. We're not playing that game. They've got to be able to understand it. Then they can ask questions. Yes. Then they know what you're talking about. And so you have to do that. And a lot of doctors don't like that.
That switch. Okay, that's really interesting, because I did actually want to ask you, what, forensic pathology, you're saying your colleagues suddenly kind of become the Gardaí and the lawyers. So, how did you kind of see your job overlapping with the law? For a room full of law students, where would you be telling them they'd be coming across the state pathologist in years to come?
You're over there and I'm over here. That's what people get confused, because they assume that I must have done law or know something about law. I know nothing, and I don't want to know anything, because I'm a pathologist, I'm a doctor, I'm a scientist. And let's leave it at that, because I know so many forensic pathologists who decide that they're lawyers. And I think that's very dangerous, because you've got a role, I've got a role, and they shouldn't get muddled. And I shouldn't be trying to tell you what you should be doing. You shouldn't be trying to tell me what I'm doing. As I always say to the guards, let me have a look at the body and I'll tell you what's going on. Thank you for your theory, but let's have a look at it and I'll tell you whether you're right or wrong. And I think that's with law. So I deliberately, you have to, if you're acting as an expert, you're an expert in your area. You can't stray, and I've seen it happen so many times before, where the experts assume that they're experts in everything, and you're not. And that's why I deliberately didn't try and find out a lot more about different aspects of even forensic science, because I thought I'm not going to be speaking about that in court. There's going to be a forensic scientist coming in here. And that's why you've got to be very aware of, your limits. And I always say it's teamwork, and we're all part of the team, and there's different members in the team, and they've all got their own little area. And I don't like to stray at all. And the only way you can do that is by not get involved. It'd be very easy to do it, because I love doing the research behind cases, but I limit it to how it killed them. You can work out who it was and why they did it, and what day it was. I don't really care. I'm just going to tell you how they died. And I've always stuck to that rigidly.
Amazing. And you actually can get, probably the clearest picture of everyone as to what actually happened to that body. Am I right? Like in forensic pathology, you can really tell the time and how and all these things? Or is it more complex than that? Is that just when it's an easy...
Yeah, I mean, the cause of death is the easy part usually. Because normally, as I say, when we were speaking earlier, I used to say, you don't pay me for, there's somebody who's been stabbed 10 times. You don't pay me for the guy who's been shot 3 times. Anybody could do that. What you pay me for is the guy who's found with a head injury, Was he just drunk and fell over? Did somebody hit him a clatter on the back of the head with a bottle? Did it? And I'm the one that can tell you that.
Okay.
And that's what you're paying me for, because these are the ones where you can either spend a huge amount of money investigating something that there's nothing to investigate, or I can say, oh, hang on, boys, you need to get your act in gear here because you've got a homicide here.
Okay.
And that's within I will say within 5 minutes, we can usually tell where this case is going.
Wow.
And that's why I get paid. It's not, as I say, for the easy
Bullet
ones.
wound and
It's for the difficult ones and the ones where people are not quite sure. And as I say, the best thing I can do is to save the state a lot of money by saying there is nothing here.
Yeah.
We can just, we'll do the whole thing. We do. In every case, there will be the full post-mortem. There will be all the evidence taken, just in case somebody. Because you never know. Because sometimes somebody does come wandering in. I remember a case that I did in Dublin. This guy came in and he had an injury to his head, but he was covered in blood, and he was found sitting in a chair in his flat, a bit like this, sitting like that, and there was blood everywhere. And the local GP came in and looked at him and went, he's an alcoholic. He's got ruptured esophageal varices. So this is where people get cirrhosis of the liver, and they get these big dilated blood vessels in their gullet, in their esophagus, and they can rupture, and it is quite catastrophic. And so he said, this is nothing, it's just an alcoholic, just get him out of here. And I walked into the mortuary and I looked at him and I thought, oh, but he's got an injury there. And I said, you better phone the superintendent, because this isn't an alcoholic. I said, he probably is an alcoholic, but that's not what killed him. And they were all going, oh, yeah, on our high horse again. And I was saying, no, honestly. And I said, and see the mark there? That looks as if somebody's given him a clatter with a ring. Yeah. And they said, yeah, whatever. And I said, and it's taken a while for him to die, because he's actually died because he's lost a lot of blood. And about 4 days later, a guy went into the Garda station in Cork and said, I've come to hand myself in. I had a fight with this guy up in Dublin, and I gave him a hit in the back of my hand, and my signet ring hit him, and then I just scarpered. I left it, he took the television, and he took something else. And he actually came back the next day and emptied the house, because when we went back to the scene afterwards, it was quite funny, because the superintendent was furious, because after he'd realised that, that I was saying, no, you have a homicide, this was before the guy turned up. I said, look, let's go back to the scene and we'll have a look. And we got back to the scene, and I was going, but in the photographs it showed that there was a cupboard over there, and there was something. All the neighbours had come in and just emptied the house. So they go, oh, I'll have that. That looks quite. Oh, there's a nice vase there. The house was just cleared and everything, and the superintendent was saying, oh my God. I said, yes, listen to your pathologist.
Absolutely. Oh, that's fascinating. Like, the depth, the kind of insight that you'd have into a case. Over probably like ourselves coming to it, trying to, argue the legal facts of it. But I do also just want to kind of tap into, you did a postgrad in forensic pathology, and then did you work as because I know that you came to Ireland, you were the deputy pathologist, then you became the state pathologist. So what are the kind of different stages in a career in forensic pathology, and what did you do as state pathologist as opposed to?
I mean, it's strange, because the Irish system is very different from the UK system.
Okay.
There is forensic pathologists do not exist in Ireland. We're not recognised by the Medical Council. So in Ireland, I was registered as a pathologist, which I refused to do, so I just registered myself as a doctor. I said, I'm not a pathologist. I said, I do not work in a hospital. I do not work in a hospital lab. I said, if you register me as a pathologist, I then have to do all this
hospital related.
And I was going, what? I don't do that. So there's an ongoing fight with the Medical Council. So we don't exist here. But Jack Harbison came along as the state pathologist, and so suddenly, in law, we don't exist either. There's no statute for so it's a strange, it's a weird thing. But anyway, it's very nice. I'm here. So in the UK, there is a training system set up now. When I came into it at first, it was like an apprenticeship. You learned on the job. But now they have a proper training scheme. So you would come in, you would have done started off in pathology and perhaps done a couple of years in that, so that you knew your way around a microscope and all the rest of it.
Yeah.
And then you would come into the training, and that would take maybe 3 years. And then you would do your postgraduate degree in forensic, whereas I did my postgraduate in histopathology. And then I did my apprenticeship for 2 years, and then I became a deputy in Glasgow, and then a consultant in Glasgow. So when I came over here as a deputy, and the reason why Jack Habson couldn't get anybody to come here, although he only asked 2 people, he asked myself and this guy from the north, but the problem, and I said, the issue you're going to have is using the term deputy, because that sounds as if it's a junior post. And yet we have to be properly trained, and we have to be at consultant level. So thankfully they have now changed it, thank God. Now they're now state pathologists, and they've got the chief state pathologist now. But it took a lot of time and arguing with the Department of Justice to say, look, when I leave, you're not going to be able to fill the post, because people will not take a deputy post, because these are properly trained people. These have been doing these for 20 years.
They're senior.
And you're now saying, oh, well, you're just a deputy. That's not the way it works in medicine. But in Ireland, you only deal with the suspicious deaths. Whereas in the UK, in Glasgow, I would deal with any unusual death. So suicides, accidents, the drug deaths, and the suspicious deaths. So I would be doing in Glasgow, I'd be doing about 500 cases a year. Whereas over here, we're doing roughly about 200. So it was a huge change. I was bored to tears when I came here at first. I'd be sitting there going, has nobody died?
Is there any jobs going? Or
put the news on. Is anybody dead?
Well, you scoped out beyond just the realms of forensic pathology, because, you consult, well, of course, actually, Owen mentioned you work in RCSI, and you also are trailblazing fighting the Medical Council to get forensic pathology recognised, but, you also consult authors who write about crime, and you worked on the Michael Collins series, so, that I'm assuming they're all kind of like career highs, like good things about the job. Have there been any lows, like any time where you were like, okay, like this today coming to work is tough, or do you just love it all?
I'm a strange person. My glass isn't half full; it's 3/4 full, and a good day it's full. So I'm the eternal optimist. So I always think everything's wonderful. And as I always say to the guards, as long as I'm smiling, everything's fine. If I ain't smiling, there's an issue. But most of the time I've been lucky in that the people I've worked with have been wonderful. And another thing I've found is you be nice to people. Always be nice to people. It costs you nothing. My mother said I wouldn't amount to anything because I was too nice.
Well, here you are.
Exactly. And I said, no, if I can't be nice to people, then there's not much point. And I believe in fairness as well. And that, anywhere I've worked, and I talk about teamwork, is that my team starts from there all the way up. So if you're the cleaner in the department, you're vital to what I do, because the place needs to be clean, everything needs to be done. So you're a valid member of the team. And I think sometimes people forget that, and I will say no. I said, then don't anybody come into my department and start pulling rank on anybody. We're all level. We're all vital to the process, and so I've always been one to, as I say, treat people fairly, and I've always advocated for anybody that's been in my team to make sure that they get proper recompense. I'm never worried about myself. I should have spent more time getting stuff for myself, but no, I was always making sure that they got what they should, and they were treated fairly. I remember going into the Glasgow mortuary when I found forensic. When it came to the first Christmas, I said, well, what are we doing for the Christmas party? And everybody sort of looked and went, we don't have parties in the mortuary. Nobody ever invites us to parties. I said, this year we're having a party. And I went up to the department, and we had a big department in toxicology and all the rest, and I said, right, I've invited all the boys from the mortuary to the Christmas party, and they went, oh no, can't have them coming to the Christmas party. I said, okay, that's fine. I won't be at yours. We're having an alternative Christmas party. And I invited all the mortuary guys and all their wives and everything, and they had never Nobody had ever done that for them.
Yeah.
Within about 2 years, people were coming up going, can I get onto your list? Because I've heard that party's great fun.
Yeah,
I
that
go,
one's
yeah,
good
it
crack.
is. I said, we'll just have to keep moving venues to get them bigger and bigger. But you treat people nice, treat them fairly, and you know, life's so much easier for you.
Absolutely. We'll have to get you on to our social secretary now about some events for members. But look, like as we're kind of coming to the end of the interview, I guess I just want to ask, do you have any imparting words of wisdom, just in general, about, you know, kind of, it was like great to hear you say actually that you were 30 when you opened the door and realized this is where I want to be. So yeah, is there anything that you kind of have to say to inspire some hope maybe in us?
Well, as I say, it sometimes takes. Some people are very, very lucky, and early on they find what they want to do. So I feel sorry for some people who, when I see like families where everybody's probably upset people here, but you know, where everybody's a lawyer or they're all doctors, and I think, did you really have a choice? Did you make the right choice for you? You know, did you just do it because that's what we do in this family? Well, I was either going to be a coal man if that was or a housewife. So I didn't become either of those. I became a doctor instead. But it's true. Sometimes it takes a long while to just find what you want to do, and a lot of people give up and settle. It's like looking for a man or looking for a woman. Don't give up and settle. Keep looking for the one you really want. And the same with a job. Keep looking for the one you really want. And you'll know, I mean, why would you spend so much of your time doing something that you didn't like or were unhappy with?
Yeah.
I mean, right enough, I've worked with them. My colleague, before he retired just after me, Mike, and I used to say, Mike, God, it must take so much effort to be so miserable. I said, have you never read these things that tell you it takes less muscles to smell than it does to frown? I said, you should try it sometimes. and it's true. But he just never, he did find what he wanted to do, which was nothing. But he had to get money to do nothing, which, you know, it's one of these catch-22 situations. But if you're looking for something that you want to do, as I say, in law you're lucky because there are different avenues you can take. You don't have to stick to sitting at a desk. You can be in court, you can be doing all sorts of things. And if you're really lucky, you'll earn lots of money.
Yeah.
I never did. I was a civil servant, so that's a whole other issue that I ever had. But yeah, as I say, there's something out there for you. I said, 8 hours a day sitting being miserable? No, not for me.
No, not for me either.
Every time I got a call, I would go, yes, what am I off to now?
Oh, well, that's amazing. That was a really, really inspiring interview. So thank you so much, Dr. Cassidy, for coming to That was really great. Thank you. Well, I think we're going to get some photos now. It's such a throne. It's like you can sit back.
Just briefly get some audience questions because we've a little bit.
Oh yeah, cool.
I'll take. Perfect. Grand. Oh, this is great. Now, does anybody want to? If you have a question, you want to pop up your hand, and I can call you. Ashling, do you want to?
Did you have a particular type of case that was like your favourite to work on? Like, were there particularly challenging ones that kind of stand out to you as being really weird?
Yeah, it's strange because every case, you never knew what you were going into. And even when somebody would phone and say, oh, I think we've got a stabbing or whatever, it was never going to be the same as the last one. So, and that was what was great about it, because people think, oh, it's a bit repetitive, isn't it? You know, people dying, there's only so many ways people can die. No, there's not, there are lots and lots of them. So there was always something interesting, and even in the ones which turned out not to be murders, there was often something quite interesting, and those are the ones that I liked, the ones where it wasn't that obvious, where you had to do a lot of work, and you had to go off and you had to, you know, sort of research things and get, you know, further, you know, get other people involved, other experts involved. So particularly in dealing with anybody that's got head injuries, I mean, I was fascinated by that, what happened. And I mean, that's when I've had my tricky times in court, trying to explain why somebody died from a head injury. Because sometimes it's very obvious, because people say, oh, he's got fractured skull, that's why he died. I go, no. No, it wasn't the fracture that killed them. The fracture tells you that, yeah, they'd had a significant blow, but that's all that tells you. And then you have to try and work out why they, you know, how they died and when they died and how long it would take to die from these things. And that becomes very interesting, particularly when you're dealing with criminal cases. So from the lawyer's point of view, those are the ones that are critical. And those are the ones that I really enjoy doing, because I'm trying to explain to people, well, this is what, no, they wouldn't die immediately with that. So they'd have time to go and do something else. There would be time for somebody. And often they would say, oh, but then if you're saying that he didn't die then and he could have, it could have taken 10 hours for him to die, somebody else could have done it. And I go, yeah, you're on the ball, boys. Out you go, guards. You detectives go detect. So those are the kind of interesting cases that you get.
Wow, okay. Does anybody else have any questions? If you want to pop up your hand, I'll pick you out. Yeah, would you like to go?
I know you were saying you're a forensic pathologist, but do you know for forensic science, do you have to be a doctor first to do that?
No. Forensic science is completely different because they are true scientists. They're real scientists. And they become real doctors as well because they get PhDs. So they're real doctors, they keep telling me. Because according to everybody, I'm not a real doctor. But no, they start off in science. And it's my big this is my bugbear, is that a lot of the colleges and universities have all of these forensic courses. Don't touch on the barge pole. And I go around schools saying, do not do this. If you've got half an hour free in the week, go and do it. But you do not take that as your main subject if you really, really want to get into forensic. So to get into forensic scientists, they have to do a proper science. So you're talking about biology, physics, or chemistry. Then go on and do your PhD, and then they'll teach you, you then apply to the forensic labs because they can teach you the forensic stuff. The forensic stuff actually is very simple and straightforward. It's getting the basics right that they need. So unfortunately, these poor kids are going to these bloody colleges who are raking it in, making money off these kids who just go, oh, look, I could do forensic macrame or whatever it is, and off they go, and they're never going to get a job with it. And it's false advertising, and it really bugs me. So I spend my time going around schools and going, no, you're not doing that. But my son wants to do this, and he doesn't really like science. I'm going, oh, well, he should not be a bloody forensic scientist. And he never will be one either. But just do not do anything with forensics. So no, they have to have it's like being a forensic pathologist. I needed to do medicine so that I could say, no, he didn't die from a heart attack. He died because somebody hit him in the head with a big brick. And I can tell you that now. So you have to have that grounding, and the forensic scientists have to have the same.
Amazing. Anybody else? Yeah.
Just wanted to ask you, ever had a case where you found it really hard to give a final opinion on what actually happened?
Sorry, I didn't get the first part of that.
Have you had a case where you've examined a body where you find it hard to give a final opinion on what the actual happened?
Yeah, it's a great question because that happens not that infrequently, actually.
Okay.
There's probably, if I say about 200 a year, there's probably 2 or 3 of those cases where they go out as undetermined for a variety of reasons. Sometimes it's because of the state of the body. We find bones or whatever it is, so obviously we can't really say too much. But in some cases, science isn't advanced enough for us to be able to say exactly what did happen. We've excluded everything else. And that's sometimes what we do, is just exclude things. And that's what when I'm doing a case, I don't start off saying this is a murder. I start off saying, can I make this something else? Can I? And I go through, well, that injury could be because they fell over or he bumped against something. So we can take that off the list. So you're left with a core, maybe 5 or 6 injuries that you say, no. They were inflicted injuries. So you can stand up in court and say, but couldn't this have happened? You go, yeah, it could have happened. Yeah, and that could have happened. Oh, yeah, and that injury could have happened that way as well. But that one, and that one, and particularly the one that killed him, didn't happen accidentally. And that's what you have to do. But so we exclude things, and sometimes we exclude everything, and then we're left going, what is it? And when I started off, again, going back to, sort of a long time ago, we didn't know about a lot of these heart conditions, which we now know about. And particularly with genetic studies now, we can say that somebody has got a particular type of heart disease, which you wouldn't pick up normally. And so we used to say, undetermined, I don't know, possibly it could be cardiac, possibly it could be this, had no idea. And now we're able to say, well, if we do genetic studies, we'll be able to sort of pick that one up. But it's still, so we're getting closer and closer to being able to find out the cause of death in everyone, but we're still not there yet. And there's still going to be things that will be found out. As I say, when I did medicine, it was dead easy because there weren't that many conditions that people had. And we only had aspirin and penicillin. You know, you tried one, the other, and he said, then you cut it off. You know, it was dead easy. But things are a bit more, you know, intense now. So no, every year, and it's heartbreaking for the families because families want an answer. So it's very difficult for me to come and say, I'm sorry, but I don't know why your son died. I think nothing terrible happened to him, and don't worry that somebody did something to him. But it's likely that it could be something like that. And what I always say to them is, get everybody in the family checked out, get genetic studies done, just in case there is something there, and we can save somebody's life. But we can't save your son's life, but maybe somebody else in the family would have a similar thing. Let's see if we can nip that in the bud.
Amazing, yeah. Anybody else? Yeah.
In like your post-mortem analysis, is there, I don't really know how to word this properly because I'm not a science student, but is there a difference between how different things affect like male and female bodies? Or is it kind of like, does analysis conclude in the same way, or is there differences in kind of what would affect possibly like a female's heart to, you know?
Yeah, I mean, it's well known that there are some diseases that are more prevalent in males than females, you know, like heart conditions and various things. But when it comes to like the forensic side of things, it's not so much male or female, it's size. So a little pipsqueak like me, it wouldn't take much to knock me over, but it would take, you know, a bit of force to cut somebody like as tall like you. So it comes down to general physique then. So a minor blow to me might have devastating consequences, whereas to a big burly man, you know, he would probably just get back and give you a clatter back. So those are the differences between, but it's not so much male and female, as I say, it's more a size thing. When it comes down to proper medicine, then yes, there are some genetic differences, you know, because we know that, as say, females are more prone to certain things than males. So we have to take that into consideration, as I say, and that's why we need to know about basic medicine so that we know what the likely things are. Because if I'm told that somebody was in an argument with somebody, and they might have been hit, we're not quite sure, and they went down like a ton of bricks. And I'm going, well, there's only a couple of things that do that. Yeah. And so I have to again think, well, that's either a sudden heart attack or it's a blow to the side of the neck which causes this sudden rupture. It's only two things that cause that. And so I need to know, but if it's a male, it's quite likely to be the heart. If it's a female, it's more likely to be. And that, again, that's just, you know, playing that kind of a game. But it's Russian roulette. You know, once you get in there, you find out exactly what it is.
Yeah. Well, you might have a load of turncoats now from the law. I think everyone's raring to ask you questions, but I know it's 3 o'clock because I can see people moving to lecture. So, so thank you so much again. We might give you another round of applause.